This is a lot worse than we thought when it comes to the Oilers' ongoing offer sheet scenario, and there might be a little cap casualty involved here when it comes to trying to even potentially match these offer sheets here by the St. Louis Blues. All that and more on today's episode with Oilers Digest. Make sure to subscribe here to Oilers Digest as we just reached a little over 1,400 subscribers. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us along the ride here amongst these dark days in Edmonton when it comes to the offer sheets and the whole cap fiasco here. But again, we'd like to thank you for subscribing, and make sure, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to get even more Oiler news on the way. I know the Oilers still have yet to announce if they're going to match these offer sheets or not, but stay tuned. As I mentioned, it is a Blue Wednesday here for the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, there's lots of news regarding the rumored offers here by Broberg and Holloway for their contract extensions. We'll get into that here, but there was a quote here from Bob Stauffer. He said Ken Holland was instructed back in January to extend Broberg and Holloway and said no, or pretty much let it slip through his fingers. And here is the full quote. He said, "Sometimes you have to be ahead of the curve. I can 100% guarantee you that upper management, Ken Holland, the general manager at that time, as far back as December and January, were instructed at the top levels of the Oilers organization to get Dylan Holloway and Phil Broberg signed to contract extensions, especially in the month of January when both players were in the minors with the Bakersfield Condors, and again from the top levels of the Oilers organization. The Oilers management team, headed up by Ken Holland, at that time was instructed, let's get working, let's get a deal done on both guys. Ken Holland is no longer the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers. It's quite ironic that Doug Armstrong, the general manager of the St. Louis Blues, if you didn't know that already, whom Ken would certainly admit is amongst his best friends in the business, that it's Doug Armstrong and the Blues that have done two, not one, but two offer sheets on the Edmonton Oilers. And that's pretty much all, but guaranteeing you that Bob Stauffer throwing Ken Holland sort of under the bus there for not getting anything done during the season. I know Ken Holland, in his time as general manager, sort of waited until the end of the season to get contract extension talks done. Didn't really like doing that in the middle of the season. Here, Bob Stauffer, sort of a puff piece here regarding a guy like Jeff Jackson. Jeff Jackson told Holland and the rest of the management team, let's get something done here. And again, Holland let that slip through his fingers. Bit unfair on Ken Holland there when he was focused on the season. And yeah, not much more you can say regarding the Stauffer quote. I know there's some Elliotte Friedman quotes saying, the contract requests, and let's get right into that. After this Athletic quote here, the expectation was that Edmonton would be able to bring back both players on low-cost bridge deals, and St. Louis preventing that represents a major blow. The Oilers can match and worry about the consequences later, but doing that would result in a slew of complications. Adding on here, defenseman Cody Ceci and Brett Kulak, who have been in multiple trade rumors here regarding the Edmonton Oilers trying to free up cap space, are the only players on the roster who either don't have some sort of no trade protection, weren't signed this offseason, or aren't named Evan Bouchard, Matisse Ekholm, or Stuart Skinner, essentially untradeable members of the team. And on 32 Thoughts of the podcast here, Elliotte Friedman says Philip Broberg was asking the Oilers for a salary in the $1.8 million range before he signed an offer sheet for $4.58 million, which is kind of, the shocking difference of numbers there even blows my mind. Adding on, Dylan Holloway was looking for a 1 to 2 year contract in the $1.2 million range before signing the offer sheet for $2.29 million. That just goes to show you it's quite the fumble by, Jeff Jackson. Don't really want to throw Stan Bowman under the bus here, not in this scenario anyways. When it comes to the contract negotiations, of course, Bowman was focused on the Draisaitl extension. We'll get into that later. But Friedman adds that Edmonton tried to sign both players during the regular season. He can't speak for Holloway, but Broberg was going to punt any contract discussion into the summer. And I know Philip Broberg and his agent, they've been quite unhappy in their time in Edmonton. I know Phil Broberg requested a trade last season because, he pretty much yo-yoed his way from the minors to Edmonton. And adding on here, when the Oilers talked to the Blues about Pavel Buchnevich at the deadline, the Blues were interested in both Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. So now the Blues are trying to get both the guys that they did want at the deadline without having to give up a player, just $7 million in cap space. I mean, with the Blues, the way they're looking, they're trying to retool and, be, a contender at the same time. Is that possible? We'll see. But it's very interesting for the Blues to take advantage of, offer sheets. They're there for a reason in the CBA, and it's sort of a low gamble move here for the Blues, because the cap is bound to go up, and they can get away with offering those contracts to players because they do have the cap space. And lastly here, regarding the whole offer sheet situation, trying to clear up cap space, Elliotte Friedman adds, if the Oilers wanted to trade Cody Ceci, they could. They had options, but I don't know yet that's really what they want to do. However, now that St. Louis has done this, they might be boxed into it and forced into it, which is huge news, because I know in the locker room, Cody Ceci is very popular. The players, obviously didn't want to get rid of him at the trade line, much to the chagrin of a good chunk of the Oiler fan base. But this might be, the straw that breaks the camel's back when it comes to, Cody Ceci on his way out of Edmonton. Who's to say? Lots of question marks again regarding the whole offer sheet scenario. The Oilers, as of right now, still have 6 days to announce if they want to match it or not. Of course, that decision could come at any time. But again, we will stay locked here on Oilers Digest for when that decision eventually does come. But next here, from Oilers Central and Elliotte Friedman on 32 Thoughts, the podcast, some Evander Kane news, or more Evander Kane news. Again, Bob Stauffer said that Evander Kane was going to have surgery, but Elliotte adds he thinks one of the reasons it took this long is because there were some conversations about which doctor was going to do it and who was available. Adding on, he's going to be out months. I'm not talking like 1 to 2 months. Now, this again could be a half a season type scenario where he's back, before the All-Star break, after the All-Star break, but he's not out the full season, so the Oilers wouldn't be able to get that cap relief. They'd only get the cap relief if he was out for the full season. But again, still have to wait on Evander Kane to make that decision. Regarding LTIR, I mean, the Oilers, again, have their backs against the wall cap space-wise, so at this point, the LTIR decision will probably come after, announcing if they want to match the offer sheets or not. But lastly here, before we end off the video, some inspiring news, some happy news regarding Leon Draisaitl. Again, Elliotte Friedman, lots of Oiler news today from Elliotte Friedman. They're working on an extension that most people believe is going to happen for Leon Draisaitl sometime over the next little while. He also mentioned teams are starting to take Leon Draisaitl's name off their boards for free agency next year, which is more than happy news here for the Oilers. I mean, I'm overjoyed here that they're not, stretching this out as far as possible and avoid like sort of a John Tavares situation here where they were trying to get something done and then eventually they couldn't. But that's it for today's video. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the current state of the Oilers. Again, offer sheets. What should they do? What shouldn't they do? Which player should they keep? Let me know down in the comments. Have yourselves a great rest of the week, and we will be back here soon enough for more offer sheet talk. Have yourselves a great day. I'm Matt.